on today's Expert Process Podcast. Do you know that it takes 10,000 hours to master any subject? Welcome to the Expert Process Podcast, where we cut the time to mastery in half with our seasoned pros. And now, from Atlanta, Georgia, broadcasting worldwide, here's your resident expert, Durante Smith.
It's a more intimate setting, correct?
Yeah. Not as many people as this.
Yeah, so it's...
And I'd like to go to that way. Yeah, because one of the things I wrote down on my little list of what I love and hate about events, I don't like events where you make appointments every half hour.
Right.
I find it to be very unproductive because at the end of 3 days, you have no idea who you talked to,
brain fog,
what you talked about, it's difficult. But if you just sit there and let synchronicity happen, you will meet the right people that you're meant to meet. And you will learn something that you didn't know,
exactly.
And so we really try hard to put together these panels that have a little bit of technology, a little bit of, this pipeline, a lot of creatives who talk about the process and some of them, we always have the directors of all of the Oscar-nominated features and shorts.
Really?
Always.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
Wow.
We do that, and we have a lot of studio heads that are there. We give them awards when they come in,
Oh, that's nice.
So it's just kind of it's a different event. But what it was kind of patterned after was 35 years ago, there was an organization set up in Europe called Cartoon. And the reason it was set up was so that animation studios all over Europe could compete with Disney, DreamWorks, Nickelodeon. And they wanted their children to retain some cultural identity and not just have Nickelodeon, Disney, And so each studio would bring their piece of the pie to this event, put together future projects, and that's what our event is very much about, and put together all the pieces of the pie and the financial pie too, because they didn't have the wherewithal, the money in each country or the distribution to be able to put together a whole project. So when you have someone from France, someone from Spain, someone from the UK, it used to be the UK, now the UK isn't part of the EU, from Ireland, Scotland, coming, each one, maybe a writer from one and a technology person from another and a studio from another, and the story comes out of another. And so you bring together all these pieces of the pie, and then you also have automatic distribution in those countries. Wow. So they get the benefits, the tax, incentives from each of those countries. And there are a lot of those now in Europe. In fact, it's much harder, I think, for independents in the U.S. to produce something that it is in Europe.
So I'm hearing a lot of that, especially in the sense that a lot of the states they've done with tax incentives. Like I'm in Georgia,
right.
So we have.
Well, Georgia's got some of the best.
We did
for live action.
Well, we did. Here's the problem.
Really? Did it?
It just changed. It literally just changed in October, right? And so what happened is the politicians come together and they were just like, it's too open. And so what they did is they moved it. So now the threshold is not 500,000, now it's 5 million, and that's per project. So that
that makes it difficult.
It makes it a lot more difficult, right? Exactly. Yeah. So. I mean, I feel like
where a lot of the creativity.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then you take, like I've been talking with a lot of Canadians and, like as you say, some Europeans, and even like places like Czechoslovakia, they really have some major incentives for you to come there because they want production. They want their people to work.
Yeah.
So like they're hungrier than we are. I feel like.
Well, I also have the tax revenue.
They have the tax revenue. Okay.
They charge a lot. France has the best in the world.
France
has the best help in the world, the best schools for animation in the world, technology, and they're way ahead of everybody else. But their taxes are very high, and the citizenry complains about that. But at the same time, if you have the smarts to navigate, process, then you can really take advantage of it, and you can, So I always say to countries when I go visit, country organizations, copy the French, because they have a thriving animation and visual effects community, and that comes from years and years of pouring money into the schools, pouring money into the studios, encouraging new talent.
They built the infrastructure.
Yeah. The Cartoon Administration group So they have Cartoon Next that I'm going to, and that's for young developers, to come and learn about how to produce.
Is that millennials or is that younger than that?
No, it's post animation school, probably, 20s.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll tell you after I go to it, because I go to Cartoon Forum and I go to Cartoon Movie, which is the older studios.
Okay.
But I haven't been to Cartoon Next yet, and they have Cartoon Business, which is all about teaching people, the business of animation.
So how do those differ from MIPCOM Junior?
MIP is simply a sales market.
So
it's where you go to sell. I mean, you can put together future deals for people that are there, obviously. And MIP is global.
Okay.
So the Cartoon Movie and Cartoon Forum, and Cartoon Next, and Cartoon Business are just the EU.
Oh, I see.
Americans can't go. They do invite people from different countries.
Can I go?
No.
We can't go.
For years, I was like the only American there.
Wow.
Then they realized it behooved them to start inviting the buyers. So now they have the buyers.
Okay.
Come in Cartoon Network, and everybody comes. But in the early days, it was not anti-American, and I got to come because I was Switzerland.
Oh,
Animation Magazine write about everybody.
Right.
Everywhere.
Tell us about the magazine.
Magazine is very cool. Magazine comes out 10 times a year. The magazine, some of the stories in the magazine are posted online. Mm-hmm. Most of our readers, about 183,000 Facebook friends, read the first line of every story every morning. Maybe they want to read the whole story, but these days people don't read so much. But the magazine is a great platform for distribution at all the festivals and events and markets that we go to. I go to a lot, probably more than any other industry piece in our industry.
Okay.
And so that's how we're able to still have a print magazine, because magazines are tough.
Yes.
The paper is very expensive. The shipping is
especially the quality of that is it's high quality.
So, and it's fun to look at because people love
bad guys. It's bad guys, right? I love Nespresso and Boots.
Yeah, bad guys, right? Yeah. But they love seeing their art. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Print. Look at those colors.
Love it.
It's incredible. So I'll be very sad if we ever have to give this up. Sustainability-wise, it's probably not something that can go on forever. We do have this in digital format.
Not the same.
And I was telling your friend that, we can, because it doesn't cost so much to distribute, I can give it out to people, And that's wonderful because, people don't subscribe to magazines anymore, but it's expensive,
Yes.
So it's very expensive, like $10 a copy just to deliver it to someone. So it's great having digital flipping magazines, and we are distributed in libraries and through EBSCO, which is a school distribution for periodicals and things like that. It's fabulous because we can get out to Ringling or whoever, and give it to all the students, and it doesn't cost us anything, except for the writers, all that. Sure. So times have changed a lot since 35 years ago. We're just thrilled that we're still here, that we're still thriving, that we're still growing, and that the magazine is still thriving and growing, and the event is thriving and growing. In fact, during COVID, it was probably our best years ever because we didn't have to print.
Right.
We weren't shipping it all over the world. Right. And so we realized the value of digital distribution.
Right.
So it's great. Right.
That's awesome. So, okay. So you have this very varied past in regard to how you got started, how you got in, right?
Yeah.
How you kind of navigated, I guess, the landscape, right? To a point of all of the changes that happen with technology.
Yeah.
Because that really, to me, is the biggest, at one point, that was the biggest barrier to entry, but that's no excuse these days, right? Because anybody can get in. If you have a passion to do something and you have a talent for it, you can find a way in, right? So I'd like for you to speak to that if you can, because you've seen those changes.
Yeah.
And you've seen now how you see someone that has a YouTube channel.
Right.
And they create this property, but they're like a cocoa melon, and they blow up, and then they get this mega deal with Disney or something like that, right? You've seen that. So
paying it forward, right? So paying it forward gives you the opportunity to work really hard, be passionate, but you gotta have perseverance.
Have to.
So a friend of mine that's been coming here and going to many shows around the world with her show won 4 awards this edition. Kids screen. Yeah.
Yeah. I just interviewed
17 years.
I just interviewed
been.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
She's a friend. And, we all really wanted her to sell it.
Yeah.
And so it's just so great. But that is a perfect example. It typically doesn't take 17 years, but it's usually around 7 to 10.
Yeah.
And so you just have to keep throwing that thing at the wall until it sticks. And there's gonna, sometimes maybe it's ahead of its time,
Right.
and people just aren't ready for it yet, or creatively, maybe it's just not the time for it, But if you have a good story and you have the energy and perseverance to keep sticking to it and telling enough people about it, you're going to get there. But you have to work really hard. It's not easy, it's never easy. But anybody that's in this magazine, that has done this will tell you it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because, what I love about animators so much is they're like God. I mean, they're creating worlds.
Oh yeah.
Creating characters.
It's fun.
They're creating everything you see.
That's right.
And writing the story. And that is really an amazing thing. It's like filmmaking, but it's even more, live action filmmaking. But it's even more incredible because the characters they develop are so different, and in some cases they don't exist. Live action, you got people, but in animation, it's incredible, and so obviously everybody that works on our magazine loves animation and is so excited. And I just love talking to animators because they are so enthusiastic and they never give up, and they're excited. And so the great thing about doing events, is you're bringing all that energy into the room,
Yes.
and when you get that collective consciousness of energy, it's so much fun and
refreshing.
So people get just jazzed, and they're totally.
It's sort of exhilarating, isn't it?
It's exhilarating.
Yeah.
It's absolutely exhilarating. And I love, they walk up to you after a panel and go, wow, that was just so great. I can't believe I got to meet so-and-so. And now, or I met so-and-so. Now, I love it like 6 months later when people email me and say, I'm doing 3 projects with 3 different people that I never expected I would ever meet. And they may not even be the top level people, at these studios. They may just be some guy that came from Singapore or something, but it works. Because I always believe, this sounds a little new age, but the universe or whoever provides and will give you what you're looking for. And if you keep that persistence vision, that POV, you will find
it will find you.
Take a little time, but yeah.
So that leads into actually how we met. The origin how we
sitting
met,
down.
So so just so you guys understand briefly, I'm not going to go into a big long story. So she referenced her ex, but this is the irony. The irony is that I had met him virtually actually some years ago. So our property is called The Fantastical Adventures of Sleepy Steve. That is it's a book. And I sold a couple 100,000 units. I went around the country touring, and I had an opportunity to get to pitch Cartoon Network. And at the time, my best friend, he was in research for them, right, on the gaming side.
Mm-hmm.
And so he got me an introduction to Rick. Rick, I think his last name is pronounced Clotfelter.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, he's SVP of acquisitions.
Yeah.
And so Rick gave me, I guess, about 45 minutes to an hour of his time. And we're talking, and he's like, man, I really like your property, like what you have, But he said, he's just like, what do you want to do with it? Well, I mean, I'm new anyway at this point. I'm like, well, I just want to get it made, He's like, well, okay, let me explain something to you. He's like, I like it, but if we take it on, the odds are it probably won't get made. We'll shelf it. Really? I'm like, what's that mean? He's like, oh, we'll take it and pop it on the shelf. We'll dust it off if we ever come back around to it. Or you're going to call it.
Or if it's like something they have, you'll never see it
You'll
again.
never see it. Right.
So you have to get your revisionist right.
What? That's what it's called? You didn't tell me that.
So the revisionist rights mean that if you sell your property to them or they option it, that if they don't make it for a while, a certain finite period of time that you set up in your contract, you get it back. And that is so important for artists to do. You may get excited about selling it to Cartoon Network or somebody else, but you got to do that because so many times with the collective consciousness, projects that are very similar, and you'd be surprised how similar,
Okay.
I've had people come up to me and say, you told someone about my project, because I saw another one in France and I'm doing mine in China or whatever. Like, no, there's such a thing as the collective consciousness where people are thinking of the same thing at the same time.
That's right.
Sounds a little new agey, but it's
serious.
True, So yeah, I always tell people the very first thing you think of in a contract is you get it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other thing is try, the great thing about putting the pieces of the pie together is you get to keep a piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're selling it outright to one of the big studios, you will not get much, in the way, especially for your first project.
Right.
You will not get much in the way of licensing.
Right.
You will not get much in the way, and licensing is way down the road,
right.
After it's been successful for a few years, but you won't see much profit.
Right.
Studios.
So, Rick told me essentially the way to subvert that is to get a partner, right? He's like, the only way I could tell you, you go out, you find a good partner, come back to me, and you know what? I'm happy.
I just realized it's 10 after 3, and I have a 3 o'clock.
Let me wrap. Okay.
But anyway.
So what Rick told me was essentially go out and get a partner, and with the partner, you come back to me and we talk. A friend of mine, Brian Cox. Do you remember Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Brian introduced me to Terry. Terry said, you know what, let me take a look, see if it's got legs. And he came back and said he liked it. And whatever the reason, we couldn't quite work it out because it takes a lot of money to develop that first piece, right?
Very much.
And so the long and short of it is that's how we met,
Yeah.
Fast forward, we were talking and she tells me your last name. I'm like, are you? And then we have this synchronicity and now here we're talking. And I want to say, because she's got to go, I want to say thank you so much for being on our show. If you had to wrap it up, what would you say? What would you say to the audience if they want to, how they find you and also this stuff?
Oh, well, just, send an email to Animation Magazine.
Animation Magazine.
Can't always write about a show until it's made and available to the viewing public, or write about a toy until it's available on the shelves, But we have ways that we can, if you find a little partner that has some advertising dollars, we have branding ads that we do or something online. So, there's always a way.
Thank you so much. Gene,
get the word out.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. We're out.
Thank you. Appreciate it.